Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable.
Well, let's start with you, Tim.
Please listen carefully.
She's as funny as Lucy and she's in the know. She's as smart as Phil and always on the go. It's the Patsy Hoolahan Show.
Well, we chose not to show any Somalians in this video. First of all, we didn't want to be called racists. And second of all, because the person at the top who's probably the most guilty is a white man. Oh.
This Minnesota fraud stuff is absolutely blowing up across the internet, and I am loving it because it is getting so big at this point that it's impossible to ignore. Right? And it also shows how terrible our mainstream media is, because mainstream media, like the Communist News Network and BS Now, aren't even really talking about this story, but everybody else is.
I'd like to know why that hot mess David Muir didn't break the Somalian fraud story in Minnesota. Why we had to hear it from a YouTuber like me.
What is so angry about the story about Minnesota? It's that you're talking about it. But moreover, it's that you're talking about it and they didn't report it. They didn't tell you how to talk about it. They didn't bring the story in a way that they get to control the narrative. That's the story here.
Go ahead.
It's Democrats who have put Somali diaspora in Minneapolis at the center of their party and their state's politics. It's a small portion of the population. There is a bunch of fraud that goes on. And even Tim Walz has claimed that any investigation of this fraud is akin to white supremacy.
No,
which
he
is
hasn't.
No,
He
he
has
never
not
said
claimed
that.
that.
He
He
never
has
said
not
that.
said
He
that.
has said
He
that.
had never
He has not
said
said
that.
that.
This is what happens when your own federal government wages war against you. This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white supremacy, the idea of white supremacy.
See, this is why you can't do things like that today. There's a 17-year-old kid that's a great editor that knows how to take it, find it, and he has all the time in the world, dear Abby. You can't say stuff like that with CNN.
He's so scared of being called a racist, be called an Islamophobe, and for saying things for what they are. That fraud is fraud. It's a fact that the Somali population inside Minnesota are committing 89% of the fraud.
89% of the fraud in Minnesota is coming from Somalis.
Yes.
But there is a reason. And the reason they are upset with you covering the story is that they didn't get to tell you the story. They didn't get to manage the story. They didn't get to massage the story. Nope. You were given the story of the fraud, and you have been able to engage with it. You've been able to respond to it. You have been able to, all by yourself, you have been able to say, well, this is a problem. Porter, who we are supposed to have massive respect for, is supposed to be the one getting whiff of this, getting news of this, hunting down this story, hunting down that story, reaching out to people, going into the places, asking the questions. Why didn't any of them?
Or finding himself in a really, really difficult re-election campaign next year.
The walls are closed in on Tim Walz. He don't have anywhere to run. Matter of fact, the word is that Tim Walz is having a breakdown behind the scenes because it has been exposed that what's been going on in Minnesota is no longer something that a few people that were just fraudsters decided to take advantage of some loopholes. This is a humongous money laundering fraud scheme that was funneling millions of dollars to terrorist networks like Al-Shabaab over there in Somalia, or the fact that where we got Somalis in the U.S., warlords that are taking fraudulent money and buying munitions and weapons, funding their own militias. This is nuts what was going on. And the fact of the matter is there was a video clip of Keith Ellison, the Attorney General for Minnesota, talking about how it was the Somali community that was responsible for him getting elected. And Tim Walz, I'm sure, feels the same way. especially when the governor of the state of Minnesota got up and he had an American flag behind him and the state of Minnesota flag, got up, removed the Minnesota flag and replaced it with the Somali looking flag behind it. Told us everything we needed to know.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute.
There, that's better. So now the backlash is so bad, you have politicians from the state of Minnesota that have publicly come out and they want Tim Walz gone. So we got the failed run as VP, and that was just the precursor. We all should have known just by when looking at this guy. I'm sure you saw it like I did, saying, this is the man that's a governor of a state. And now we realize why he was picked, why he was selected to be the governor of Minnesota, and why Skamala selected him to be the VP, her VP candidate. Because can you imagine her left-wing radical self with socialist tampon Tim? Where would we be at today?
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I have just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
This is how deep the problem, of course, is in the state of Minnesota. And again, I'll just repeat one more time before 2025 ends. It's not by coincidence or accident, okay? It's not as though, I can't believe the Democrats were so incompetent as to never catch this. Of course they know this is going on. And ignore any commentators trying to tell you, the government screwed up. The government didn't screw up. Tim Walz knew exactly what he was doing. All the it's a proven fact already, by the way, that many members of the Minnesota state government, especially the state legislature, but even people like A.G. Keith Ellison, have received indeed either campaign kickbacks for ignoring Somali fraud, or in some cases directly were engaged in it, right? They were funneling money essentially back to companies owned by members of their own family, okay? So you really look at that and mean to tell me that, you don't think the Democrats knew this was going on? No, absolutely. They're in on it, okay?
Or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take care of our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
None of this stuff is hard to catch. A lot of people are asking, you really going to take a YouTuber seriously when it comes to exposing government fraud? Well, I'm not trying to even insult Nick Shirley's journalistic ability here, but I think what he's actually proving is that it's not hard to find at all, right? I don't think he's doing anything super intricate. He's not really connecting a lot of dots. He's just like, hey, let's go to Somali-ran daycares and healthcare centers and all these places and see if we can find a single legitimate one. And the same pattern continues to repeat itself over and over again.
Well, we chose not to show any Somalians in this video. First of all, we didn't want to be called racists. And second of all, because the person at the top who's probably the most guilty is a white man.